that was Savannah, was it?
No, it wasn't Georgia. It was Rocket City Marathon. It's
Huntsville.
Huntsville, yeah, Rocket City. Remember that?
It was so beautiful.
That's where all the rocket scientists live.
That's right. That's right.
All right, John, can you say your name really quick and
Sure.
spell it out for us?
Just like first and last name.
Just first and last name. Yeah.
And do what?
I just say your name and spell it out.
As okay. John Wilt, John Wilt.
Okay. And you're gonna look at me. The camera's not even here.
Oh, the camera's not even
Camera's
here.
not even
Good. Okay.
All right. So tell me about, I guess, your like how did this running thing start? Back in December of '76, what made you want to run that first marathon?
Well, I started out running locally at Eielson Air Force Base, and just one thing led to another, and those were 10-milers. Some of them were 10-milers, some of them were shorter, and I just grew into the running community. I was a member of the Eielson Milers Club, became president of that group, and had some real good friends in the Eielson Milers Club. And I as I recall, someone said, you know, they have a marathon in Fairbanks that's the Equinox, why don't you go run it? So I ran that. That was in September of 1976. But as we discussed on the phone, my actual first marathon was June of '76. That was a Sun Bear Marathon, Midnight Sun Marathon.
And that was also in Alaska, right?
That was in, yeah, right.
Okay. So I guess tell me a little bit about your, because I mean you've lived all over the place because you're a former military, correct?
Mm-hmm, correct.
So tell me about your journey in the military and how you ended up in Alaska for that first marathon.
Well, my first Air Force Base assignment was Eielson Air Force Base. So that's how my wife and I got to Fairbanks, Alaska. Eielson is about 30 miles south of Fairbanks. And I wasn't a runner then. I really, well, as far as the military career, I was in the 5010th Security Police Squadron as the operations officer. And that came to a close in 1972. I almost said I was removed from active duty. It wasn't. I got out of the active military and then joined the reserves and stayed with the Air Force Reserves from that day forth, from roughly 1972, and then I retired in 1999 after 30 years.
Okay. So, and I know in the military that you have, like when you graduate, basically you get an opportunity to say where you would like to be stationed at, but you very rarely ever given, you know, I mean, it's basically wherever they need you, but
yeah.
So did you want to be in Alaska, or is that just where they put you?
No, that's where they put me. And I was a little bit different because I was an Air Force ROTC graduate. So I was commissioned in February of 1968. And strangely, I was assigned at that point to Air Force Office of Special Investigations, AFOSI. But I turned that assignment down because I was on an educational deferment to get a master's degree at the same university, at Kansas State University. So I stayed at Kansas State, and then, well, as the story goes, my first set of active duty orders got lost in the mail. That's as much as I remember, because I got a phone call when I was finishing my master's degree. The phone call came through. My father-in-law picked up the phone, and it was Lackland Air Force Base, and it said, "Is John Wilt? Does he happen to be there at your address?" And I said, yeah, he's in the basement studying or something. He's being ordered to active duty. And I said, okay, so I was informed that I would be on active duty as of November of 1969. And so what happened was I received the assignment to Eielson from there. I was being sent to Eielson Air Force Base actually from Wichita, Kansas.
So you go from Kansas up to Alaska, and your wife went with you, because you guys were married.
Yeah.
And up there, it sounds like basically somebody said, "Hey, let's run a marathon."
Let's just run, yeah. And that happened on a basketball court. This guy walked up to me and said, "Hey, let's run around the gym." I said, "No, I play basketball. I don't run." So I started running around the gym, and I was hooked from that point forward. That was most likely that was in the dead of winter. I think you know a little bit about Alaska winters. So I ran inside. I just kept running inside, and it was at that point that I made a couple of friends who were in maintenance at Eielson, Orvie and Dale. And they said, you need to come run with us. And I said, well, what do? You don't know what a 5K is. You don't know what a 10K is. I mentioned the 10. There was the Manchu trail run that started off Eielson and went to the center of the base. And that was one of the first runs that I did. So it was cumulative. And I just got hooked after running the first few races. And it might have been Dale that said, there's a marathon at the Equinox Marathon at the University of Alaska, just up the road. So why don't you go run that? So I ran that. My wife and I did the second one together. But again, the first marathon was in June of 1976. That was the Midnight Sun.
So from
Sunburn.
June 76
Mm-hmm.
all the way to, I guess, just
October 21st.
So what made you, you said you got hooked on these.
Yeah.
Did you ever think from that first marathon that eventually you would run one in all 50 states?
No, not even close. And that realization didn't happen until we landed here in Danville in 2001. I mentioned to you that I had 5 marathons in California, had a series of, there were 7 marathons in Alaska, and a whole series of marathons on Maui when we lived on Maui. And then I took the job at Danville Community College. We got here in August of 2001, and I started looking around, and so, hey, there's Maryland, there's Pennsylvania, and there's, South, all the states in the South. And so I had a whole series of marathons at that particular point. And my first experience once we landed in Danville was the Baltimore Marathon. So I did Baltimore, I did that twice. So that took care of marathon, that took care of Maryland. And I pointed out the map that's on the wall behind us. It was several marathons after Maryland and probably Tybee in Georgia and maybe South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. I did a few Virginia and a few North Carolina marathons. And so I started putting the little stickers on the map. And I just kind of suddenly realized, just keep putting the stickers on the map on the states, and maybe eventually you'll reach all 50 states. But I was committed at that point to running all 50 states.
So, and I just want to make sure I have it right. So you, the first one was in Alaska in 76,
Mm-hmm.
and then you ran a few more on the West Coast. And then when you landed here in 2001, after you got out of the military, that's when you started doing the majority. So majority of these marathons have been since 2001.
Since 2001, yeah.
Wow. Now, if you don't mind me, how old are you, John?
Well, I'll be 80 on November 25th.
I would not have picked that.
Yeah, when I ran the Garmin October 21st, 2023, I ran that when I was 79. And I mentioned to you that was the fastest of the last 10 marathons that I'd run. I was really pumped for that 50th state, and the training was really, really excellent. And I was, because of my age, if you contrast the fastest marathon that I ever ran was 3 hours and 13 minutes, and that was a Maui marathon, to 6 hours and 4 minutes. And the age difference expanded considerably. So it slows you down. The age just slows you down.
But still, you're still like popping out great times. You got second place in the last one you did.
Yeah.
You still got, and I want to talk about that in a minute. But
okay.
So in 2001, and I'm not good at math on the fly. So how old were you in 2001 when you moved here?
Oh my, 2001. Well, I was in my 60s.
And so you've done a majority of these states since you've been in your 60s.
Yeah, I would say so. At least half. At least half.
That is
More than half.
That is impressive because a lot of people that's like when you're in your 30s because you didn't set out that goal. You didn't set out this goal until you were in your 60s.
Yeah.
A lot of people are at home at 60, just watch the Price is Right.
I was just getting going.
And wow.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's a thrill. The marathon experience is a thrill. The first 2 or 3 miles is not such a thrill, but once you get to the 5 mile point, the 10 mile point, and yeah, actually becomes fun. It does depend on your training, rest, nutrition, and the other factors.
So, and all right, so since 2001, you've done a majority of them.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, and this is going to be, I'm sure, an impossible question to ask you, but of the 50 states, what was, because you've done multiple, some states you've done multiple marathons and out of that.
Virginia, North Carolina.
What would you say has been the most unique one that you've done?
That'd have to be Pikes Peak.
Tell me about Pikes Peak.
Well, so I needed Colorado, and I had a choice of Denver, which is a somewhat flat and doesn't have mountains. So I don't need to explain Pikes Peak. So, and my wife asked me, so why Pikes Peak? Because it's a challenge. And so I signed up for Pikes Peak, needed Colorado, and I knew that the distance was up to 14,000 feet. I mean, I knew that. What I didn't know, and so you sign up according to when you think you're going to finish. I was in the 6th wave of runners. I had 5 waves in front of me, and it was very difficult to get around people. You're using a lot of energy to weave in and out and so forth. So it was a gradual push up to the top. And they have a cutoff at the top, and I made the cutoff at the top. I didn't make the cutoff at the bottom. There's an 8-hour cutoff at the bottom, and I'm just going to round it. We can check my time, but I believe I crossed the finish line in about 10 hours, and so that was beyond the cutoff time. I needed proof that I ran a marathon in Colorado and Pikes Peak in particular, so I went to the table. There was this really nice lady there. My cousin was there. Mark was there. Joel was with me. So we got on our hands and knees and said, please, could we get this guy a finisher's medal? And it's sitting right there. And so she gave me the finisher's medal. And for the 50 States Marathon Club, you've got to prove that you've run all 50 states. So I didn't want to go back and run Pikes Peak again, and I guess if push comes to shove, I would have done Denver. But it was an exhilarating experience. It was more fun coming down than it was going up. When I was 10 miles out to the finish line at the Pikes Peak, I mean, I just literally took off. I felt real good. I fell twice, went into the thicket at least once, cut myself all up, but because you're going down. So
what is, I mean, for those that don't know, a marathon is it's the same distance. If you're running a marathon, are all of these been the same distance?
Same distance.
Okay,
yeah.
and which is
26.2.
Okay.
Yeah. And also let me also point out that I have a total, because I've done multiple marathons in states, it's 119 total marathons, and the 50 States Marathon Club is allowing me to include my 8 ultra marathons, which is 37. Those were all 37 miles up a dormant volcano to 10,000 feet. So I'm counting those for a total of 119 marathons. So that's a little bit of an exception because those are 37 miles, but I got 26.2 miles out of it.
So what has been, so Pikes Peak is definitely the most, would you say the most memorable?
That was most memorable.
But tell me some of these others. I mean, especially for people in our area that they might not leave the area. Like, I mean, you've done. I mean, it looks like you've done one in Alaska. You've done one in Hawaii. I see one. It looks like just north of Vegas up there on the map. Like what has been like? Would you say the most challenging, the most memorable, the easiest one? Like just ones that just come out in your mind.
Yeah. One of the last ones that I did was the Xenia. That medal is sitting right there, the Xenia Avenue Marathon, which is Minnesota. That marathon did not go so well. I'm not sure exactly why. The training was good, but it took me 7 hours to finish the Xenia. But I got Minnesota, checked that off my list. I think as far as least memorable is they ran us around this loop. There was not scenic, and we went around this loop. And they counted every time you crossed the line. They told you how many that you've run, and I think it was like 7. So in order to get 26.2 miles out of 7 loops times 4, that'd be 28 miles right there. Like a 4-mile loop. Boring, very boring. But I finished it. Finished it in 7 hours. It was hot. And I may have miscounted. Somebody may have miscounted the number of times that I crossed the threshold there. But they said, "Okay, this is your last time," and I could not wait. As far as I have to tell you about New York, since we talked about New York, and you've biked all the boroughs, all 5 boroughs. That probably is right in there as the thrilling experience in New York. So they dropped us off in this gully, and you had something to protect us. Really cold, and then pretty soon they'd say, "Okay, everybody up, we're getting ready to start." And you came up out of the gully and you started running. My brother wanted to do New York, and you had to have a qualifying time. I don't remember where my qualifying time was, but we ran that together. He finished an hour before I did. And he went to the he caught his plane back to New York. I had a hamstring injury. I could talk to you about that all day long. Suffice it to say that hamstrings and running is a terrible mix. The hamstring hit me at about mile 3, mile 4, and I was struggling. It took me, I think it was 5 hours and 45 minutes to finish New York, but I was going to finish it. I was going to get that finisher's medal, and I was going to get the shirt. In this stack here are all the bibs from I've saved all my bibs, and that's another thing. Let's go back to Pikes Peak. So, had I not gotten the medallion, the finisher's medal, and I also got a finisher's jacket. I wrote the race director and said, I ran it. Do you think you could send me a finisher's jacket? So I got the finisher's jacket. But if you run a marathon and if you don't get the finisher's medal, if you can't prove that you run it, that's not going to fly with the 50 states. It just isn't. So every time I started a marathon, I was committed to finish it because I didn't want to go back. I could talk to you all day about Little Rock, Arkansas, and Little Rock. I've got the finisher's medal over there. The finisher's medal's over here, I got second place in the Little Rock marathon. That was an experience. So that's the only marathon that I recall where there was a 30-minute delay in the start of the race because of a cloud burst. It was raining pitchforks. So it stopped raining. The race director came into the tent. It was a small field, I think about 300, 400 runners. He said, "Okay, we got to go. The rain has stopped. Everybody out." I sang the national anthem, and we took off. At it was somewhere around mile 12, mile 13. It was like Montezuma's revenge. The clouds opened up, and it poured. You know how you get a hard rain. This was a hard rainfall. And I got to mile 20 and wondered, we had not only, no exaggeration, we had not only lightning, we had thunder and the hard rainfall. At mile 20, I said, "This party's over." And I just took off. I just said, if you don't get yourself down the road, you may not get a finishing time and so forth. And you can't stay. I was almost hypothermic at that point. So I just flat took off. One of the course marshals came up behind me on her bike. It was a lady. And she said, and my finishing time in that one was 6 hours and 20 minutes. She said, do you think we should pull you off the course? I said, not in this life or the next. So I think I was speeding up at that point. But with lightning and thunder, you know, it's a pretty serious risk if you're out there in the middle of nowhere. And I wasn't even in the middle of the pack. There were a few people out there with me, and there weren't that many. So that was a real thrill. I got second place in my age group, and sitting over on that table is a little chip, you know, that you put on your shoe.
Yep.
Guess where the chip was? Back in my hotel room.
Oh, no.
So I crossed the finish line, and the guy that was doing the timing came running out of his little comfort area and so forth. He said, we didn't get a time for you. Is there some problem? And so he said, you know, where's your chip? I said, okay. So I figured I was going to be going back to Little Rock, Arkansas to do it all over again. He said, so what was your time? I said 6:20, that was honest. And I got a 6:20 for that event, but it was kind of miserable. But so many gratifying marathons, and most of them were all really, really good experiences. Two of the marathons, Utah, Idaho, and Nevada, all three of those, you started up 26 miles. You ran down. You think that's going to be easy, and it's not. Running downhill is a real chore. It's hard on everything. Those weren't great finishing times. Probably 5 hour and 30-minute marathons. Nevada, Utah, Idaho.
When I do the 4-mile walk every year in Lynchburg, and yeah, just walking downhill. I mean, I can feel it just walking. I can't imagine running it. Do you do the foot levelers marathon? I
did that once.
How was that?
A kick in the butt. Can I say that?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I did that once. I placed in my age group. I believe it was somewhere, I'm just guessing, 4 hours and 45 minutes or whatever. And as you know, since you're from Lynchburg, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I believe what do they do? Claim 3 mountains. You go up. The names of the mountains. Yeah. You go up and down, and then you go up again, and you go down. When they sent us out into the neighborhood, I thought, I don't know if we're ever going to get to the finish line. When I was out in the neighborhood, it kind of was, it took us kind of in an upward direction, and then you got to come down. So that was a doozy.
I've heard that. I think they say it's the toughest road.
Supposedly.
Yeah. And, I mean, after that, I believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you do the 10-miler in Lynchburg every year too.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Done it every year for the last 15, and sang the national anthem. I've sang the national anthem for those folks at least a dozen times. Jeff, I know Jeff. We're on a first name basis.
Nice. So,
hi, Jeff.
Also, tell me about this thing to where you, at some of these, singing is your other passion. So not only have you run in some of these, you've also sang the national anthems of these too. 20
times.
Tell me about that. How did that start?
20 of the 50 states sang the national anthem. So I wanted to make sure I was registered for the event. We could use Kansas City as an example. Because, somebody could say, hey, I want to come and sing your national anthem. Wait a minute, well, we want you to register for the event. So I would register for the event. About 2 months out, and I'd send the race director an email. Say, please, please, please let me sing the national anthem, and here's why. Here's my experience singing the national anthem, graduation ceremonies here locally, and other marathons. By the time I did Kansas City, October 21st, I had done 19 national anthems. So here's why you should let me sing the national anthem for you. Interestingly, and the race director was super nice. He emailed back. He said, "Well, your timing is amazing because the person who we usually have who sings the national anthem is not going to be here." Oh, really too bad. So I got to sing the national anthem at the Garmin, and my son was there. A relative of my daughter was there, so they heard me sing that. But it's and I like to sing it to background music if I can. That's a real thrill. I've done it a cappella. But I'm not sure I'm answering your questions, but that's how I got my foot in the door 20 times, and 10, I sang the national anthem at 10 consecutive marathons. I thought, you have to get the Garmin because that'll be number 10 and that'll be number 20 total. So I got the Garmin. And I think I mentioned on the phone that the real thrill of singing the national anthem was at Fargo, North Dakota. And I did the same thing. Emailed the race director, please let me sing the national anthem. And so I was way up on, these, what do you call it?
The stage?
Yeah, a huge stage. And there were 10,000 runners in the 5K, 10K, half marathon, and full marathon. And had the background music for that and sang the national anthem. And again, that's on YouTube. If you want to just go under John Wilt, you'll see that along with
the documentary.
The documentary.
And I can use the documentary too.
Oh, any part of it.
Okay. Yeah. So tell me about the last one that you just did.
Yeah.
Number 50.
Number 50.
Tell me about number 50.
Total thrill. Absolutely. Good course. Maybe 3 or 4 hills, somewhat flat. Perfect weather. So I was staying with, again, my daughter's father-in-law. Stayed with them, and it was like 3 blocks from the starting line. And so I had emailed, his name is Rick Crawford. I had emailed him a year out. I said, well, I want to come to Kansas City. I was supposed to come this year. I was supposed to run it in 2022. Couldn't because of a Crime Stoppers event. So they honored my registration, and I ran it in 2023. I said, Rick, I don't want to come to Kansas City and not let you know that I'm in town, so I'll be in Kansas City. He said, you're staying at my place. I said, oh my gosh. So stayed at Rick's place, 4 blocks from the starting line. And I walked out of his house that morning, and it was, an October morning, can be snow, sleet, rain, all 3. Absolutely, it was like 50 degrees, perfect weather. I walked out of his house in a t-shirt, and I thought, you're gonna regret this. And it was just perfect, absolutely. And the weather was beautiful. The course was great. I've never seen so many policemen in my life. I think they had the entire Kansas City, Missouri police, that all the different the state police were there, city police. It was just marvelous. Finished in great shape, a 6:04.
Good to go.
Good to go. Yeah.
So Missouri was that was the last one that you
50.
needed, right? That
50.
was the one that would need to. So why was Missouri was it just that nothing came up?
Nope.
Just how did we miss Missouri until number 50?
Well,
Did we have a vendetta against Missouri?
No. Back to the map. Okay, what's left? Why don't we do this? Why don't we go back to 2022? The 2022 time frame. I did 6 marathons that year. 2021 I did 6 marathons. 2022 I did 6, and in 2023 I did 5. So backing up to 2021, I realized probably in 2020 you're going to have to speed it up, or you're not going to make it. And the other thing, the advantage is it's cumulative. You've got 1 marathon, and a month later, literally, I was running a marathon every 2 months. And so you've got all that training, and you don't have to train as much. Got a marathon in 2 months. But I kept up my training. Also had a marathon under my belt. By the time I finished, if we use Little Rock, Arkansas, that was a December marathon. And that's pretty risky in Little Rock, Arkansas. And so I had 5 marathons under my belt. I said, wow, you know, you should do really well, 5 marathons plus the training. Well, the weather and because of the, you know, the age thing and so forth, is still a 6:20. It didn't necessarily, I didn't run a 5-hour marathon. You would have thought that I could have run a 5-hour marathon. But so in 2020, I said, you're going to have to speed it up or you're not going to make it. And I feel like last year in 2023 with the Garmin, my 50th state, I feel like I just made it. Because that was 6:04, but my body is telling me, you know, throughout this year in 2024 already, my body is telling me, you know, something is different in your body, and you know, you have to have that training under your belt in order to make these cutoff times of 6 hours.
So
usually,
why did we skip over? Like, how did we inadvertently kind of skip over Missouri?
Missouri?
Like, yeah, because it seems like a random state to skip over. Like,
yeah,
like as a lot of people I know when they plan these sort of things, they plan for, okay, well, I'll save California for that because that's the farthest away, or I'll save Virginia for the last. It's right in my backyard. Missouri's kind of an odd one to end on.
Excellent question. So you have to look at the date. When is Missouri? Missouri is in October. Pick another state, Tennessee, or if you're still doing one in Virginia, when is the marathon? And if I have something else going, or if it conflicts with a marathon that I've already signed up, I just can't run it. So, you know, to answer your question on Missouri, October is kind of the end of the year, and it just, you know, in 2022, that fell at a good time. I didn't get to do it in 2022 because of the Crime Stoppers event. And it just that was my last one. I think the Xenia was the next to the last, and I don't recall. Might have been Michigan, Wisconsin could have been in there in 2022 in those 6 marathons that, you know, that I signed up for. But it had to fit my schedule.
So at a point, you're picking marathons not necessarily because of the scenery or because they're cool. You're literally picking them so you can finish here at the goal.
You're right.
Okay. So when how did you? I'll back up. Obviously, you got a ton of medallions. Some are big, some are small, some are huge.
Yeah.
Like, tell me about some of these. Like, what's your favorite medal out of all of these? If you could put.
Oh wow. Okay. Sitting right there. Probably Atlantic City. I think it's such a cool marathon. I mean, they're all, I just adore all of them. I mean, the Marine Corps marathon, my 50th state, that's so cool. But you know, if I had to pick the Utah, Nevada, Idaho medals, I think this is, Portland. That's cool. That's a cool medallion. But Atlantic City, yeah, right in there, tops.
So, the 50 State Club.
Yeah.
I did not even know that there was a club for people that have run a marathon in all 50 states.
Yeah.
So, did you know that was a club? Or did somebody tell you that was a club?
No.
Okay.
Not until a marathon event and I see this person, I can almost go back to when I can see the shirt, 50 marathon, 50. I'm a member of the 50 Marathon Club. Okay, well that's interesting. But when I saw that shirt, it didn't really click that, okay, you can get some kind of recognition for doing all 50 states. So I looked into it probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I started checking out the 50 states because, you know, you may as well get some recognition for doing all 50 states. Now, there are some qualifications. The first qualification is you have to prove to the 50 States Marathon Club that you've done at least 10 states, or you're not going to get membership. So I filled out the form. I don't know which 10. 4 or 5 years ago, I was well beyond 30 states.
So
I was into the
like
40s.
You were just doing this for grins and giggles for your own.
Oh, yeah.
minute.
Oh, yeah.
And then you found out about this, and you're like, well,
Yeah.
I'm already halfway here, right?
More than half, yeah. The other reason is for health. That's the other reason, is for good health. The running, to stay in good shape, for good health, and then with the realization that there's a 50 States Marathon Club, hey, you may as well sign up, see if you can qualify. And then at 40 states, you're committed. It's kind of silly. Oh man, you only had 10 more states to go. That's a bummer. Now, if I had a knee injury, something that had stopped me, lost the motivation, the motivation was always there to finish. But there are other things that happen, like injuries, catastrophic things that might happen to you that would just stop you from meeting that qualifying time of 6 hours.
So it would be fair to say that, you started after you got here in Danville in 01.
Yeah.
You just started doing all the marathons.
As many as I could.
To hit the 50 states for your own personal goal.
Yeah.
And then about 4 years ago, you found out that, there is actually a goal for this.
Yeah.
And then it was it was on.
Yeah, it was on. It was definitely on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when, I guess now that you have completed all 50 states, what is next for you? Because it sounds like you're a guy that, you strike me as the kind of individual that doesn't like to stay still.
Yeah, that's right. 5Ks, 10Ks. We talked about the Lynchburg 10-miler. That's one of my favorites. I'll be up. I'm already signed up for it. The Star City in Roanoke half marathon. I'm already signed up for that. Without a doubt, I'll do Durham. I have a box full of their medals. The Durham is a December. Yeah, it's a December event. I'm signed up for that. I'll do that again. I will go, by the way, I'll go to all 3 of those events with a friend who's also a runner. He has dozens and dozens and dozens of half marathons. And so we'll do that together. And I will speak to him at this particular point in time without saying his name because I don't have his permission. He will be so far ahead of me in that half marathon event. He will, I hope that he'll wait for me because sometimes I ride with him, sometimes he rides with me, but he will be so far. He's an excellent runner and he specializes in half marathons. I'm not sure I answered your question.
No, you didn't. So you're going to stay active.
I'm going to stay active. 5K, 10K, oh yeah.
So another thing that I think, and again, not to, draw attention to the age, but you're, again, you just said you're 80 years old or something. Or
have all my teeth.
What do you have to say to, maybe somebody out there?
Oh, gosh.
Messed up the shot.
For the sedentary folks, especially if they're in their 30s.
Like for someone that,
Oh.
I guess, the fact that you're never too old to try something or you're
That's
never
right.
too old to set out on a goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Get active. Walk. Start walking. If we were to take this person who has never walked, for example, or they have never exercised, and we know that there are people out there like that. I would say get up and start walking. Map yourself a course and start walking. Since you're a biker, the exhilaration of getting on a bicycle and going like you did 40 miles in New York, the exhilaration. Running, walking, swimming, it's stress reduction. It is a stress reduction phenomenon. And if you don't have to believe me, just try it and you'll see. When I have been out, especially on my long runs, 10 miles and over, 15 milers and so forth, I do a lot of problem solving. And as we go through this life, you've been in situations where this is, it seems like an insurmountable thing for me. How am I going to get over, whether it's a financial situation, a relationship situation, and you go out and you get with nature. Let me say at this point, leave the headphones, leave that stuff back, and don't get don't, take your cell phone. You need to get out there with nature and commune with nature. You don't necessarily have to walk with someone. That's cool if you can walk with someone or run. I'm a loner. Never run with anybody else unless it's a running event and then there are crowds of people. But I'm going to leave you with an article, because you don't have to be a marathoner, but I'm going to leave you with an article. The best summary that I have seen, the article is right behind me here, was sent to me by a church friend, and it is an excellent summary of the benefits of marathoning, the benefits of walking, the benefits of swimming. On that wall, this was shortly after, I believe this article is in 2024, I think. I don't know if your eyes are really good, but reap the rewards of running, reap the rewards of swimming, reap the rewards of walking. And, the rewards are simple, activity, activity, activity.
So when you, and I should have asked this earlier, what does your family think about your 50-state marathon journey here?
They love it. Yeah, I have 2 daughters and a son, and they're, and my wife, who's in the other room, she has been my best supporter. That is critical, whatever endeavor, whether it's hunting, fishing, running, swimming, or whatever, you need that support. And if someone is, for example, okay, so John, this is a hypothetical conversation. John, you've got 25 marathons. That's enough, okay? I don't think you need to do any more. And think about the expense. That would be a whole nother conversation. But that conversation didn't happen. But if someone stands in your way of you trying to reach some goal, that's going to be an impediment. I haven't had any of those impediments. Sitting right here in this little pile are postcards. And so when I had 25 states under my belt. So the 26th state, I started sending all 3 kids a postcard. And it would summarize the running event, whether it was Michigan's on top or whether it was Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee, I think I was way before. That was way before I reached 25 marathons. And the postcards, I told the kids to save the postcard, which summarized Michigan, for example, my finishing time, the weather, anything unique about the event. And so I sent the postcards out. I said, please save these. So when I reached the last marathon, Garmin, did a postcard for that one, although my son and daughter were both there. They still got a postcard. Our other daughter is on Maui, and she got a postcard. So we had a contest. So I designed, I think it was 30 questions based on the information in the postcards. And there was a first, second, and third place for the 3 kids. I won't tell you who got first, who got second, who got third, but it was a monetary award for them enduring all this running craziness. I guess it would be one way to put it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you were briefly, you were also recognized by the city
Yeah,
not too long ago.
right, yeah.
What tell me about that.
Yeah, the certificate is on the wall, his certificate of recognition. And I'm good friends with, can we say the name of the city councilman?
Sure.
Yeah. Now I have to think of his name. Anyway, we're friends in Kiwanis, and it'll come to me. I said, hey.
Is it Lee?
Lee, yeah, sorry, Lee Vogel.
I'm actually talking to him later today.
There's a vote.
Yeah,
vote for you, Lee. Anyway, I said, hey, Lee, you think I could get some kind of recognition from the city for finish? He said, yeah. So once we talked, 3 weeks later, I was in the city council chambers receiving the recognition from Alonzo Jones and the other city councilmen. Yeah.
What do they say about? Well, and I guess I can ask him. But like, what is it? I mean, that's a pretty cool thing, just in itself, being recognized by the city that you've lived in for
23 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you want to?
Oh, well, I think they were somewhat in awe, and to put it this way, a local doctor, I talked to him, and he does knee and hip replacements. He said, buddy, you're in the 1% for that achievement. So it is, it's kind of, I think a lot of folks do have difficulty realizing 26.2 miles. And I've had numerous people, I'll drive my car 26.2 miles, but I won't, or a 5K or a 10K or a 10 mile or whatever. But I think, unless you've had that experience, it is hard to visualize, let alone doing it 119 times.
That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say before we cut the interview off, and then I'll just get some shots?
Yeah. Let's see. I'm a race director, and maybe a plug for somewhere in here is my flyer. June 8th here in Danville, Virginia, we have the 23rd annual Run for Justice. It starts at 9 o'clock in the morning at Anglers Park. So come on out and do the 23rd annual. We have great door prizes. We have awards, trophies, and so forth. And hopefully we'll have a good weather day. So I've been a race director. This is my 43rd race director experience. I did 20 on the island of Maui and have done 23 here. Yeah.
Do you have a biking component to that?
No.
You should do that next year.
Yeah,
You
well,
should
maybe
have
so. It's on the Riverwalk Trail.
Okay.
There are bikers out there. The only other thing that I would, I feel honored to have been able to sing the national anthem 20 of the 50 states. The flag that's just there to your within reach is the flag that I carried. I always carried the flag, and when I sang the national anthem, so that flag has theoretically been with me. I don't know that it made all 20 states, but the majority of the states, I would take that flag with me, and as I'm singing the national anthem, would wave the American flag. So that was a real honor. But the only thing that I would say, it kind of came to me this morning when I was out running, is sitting over here are 3 awards for the Rock and Roll Marathon. One's in Phoenix, one's in New Orleans, and one is in Raleigh, North Carolina. And if you look at those awards, all those marathons were in my 60s. And it's like, go figure. You're getting, I think there's a couple first place awards there for my age group, and I think there's a second place award. So I started processing that, and just simply my competition was dropping off. You were pointing out what happens in your 60s, let alone your 70s. But to receive like a first place award in New Orleans, if you're in your 60s, where's the competition? Well, the competition, there are not too many people still running that I can compete with. And I need to point out that the Little Rock experience, where I got second place, and Xenia, I got second place. There were 2 of us.
Hey, you finished.
There you go.
You finished.
2 of us.
You crossed the line.
There wasn't anybody else there. And I was almost dead last in that marathon event.
But you finished.
I finished.
That's
yeah.
it.
All right. Yeah, that's all I can think of.
Okay.